Today is November 15th, and this is the Breakaway USA live show. Let's get into it.
Awesome, guys. So we're going to talk about a few topics today. Xi Jinping is in the U.S. getting a very welcome reception. Iran is getting $10 more billion from the U.S. And the one I want to talk about right now is Dominion voting machines going down or not counting votes in Georgia. So, Fabian, if you want to pull up that tweet so we can see what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that is essentially what we all knew was happening. It's just now it's been confirmed with this. And this is actually off your Instagram, Gentry Jeevers. If anyone wants to follow him, follow us, breakaway_USA. But let's see what this says here.
So it says, in last week's city council race in Gordon, Georgia, voting machines failed to count 495 votes out of 2,100 total votes. Apparently, they spent $107 million on this Dominion voting machine system. So I don't know if that was all of Georgia or just this local race. Hopefully, it was all of Georgia because that's a tremendous amount of money to spend on a local race. But they failed to count 24% of votes. And my caption, "Oh no way," is exactly how everybody feels right about now.
Look, I think when this first came out, this news, as far as myself, I thought, come on, those machines are unbreakable, right? That's what you're led to believe. And over time, information has come out that in actuality, it's probably the exact opposite. Because anything that can be coded can be hacked and can be manipulated by anyone. I mean, I work in the cryptocurrency space and I see this happen all the time. People hack in and they can do anything they want to it. So this is very scary for our democracy. And I think that we need to finally get everything out there, give the public the correct information, stop hiding things behind all these, whatever they're doing, and just let us see exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I think we're sick and tired of these voting machines. We got to go back to paper ballots. It's nonsense. I told you guys a couple times that Canada, one of the few things we do right is all paper ballots and voting with an ID, and it's very strict and same day counting. None of this manipulatable technology.
2-month process.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's a joke, but what's very interesting is how they find a way to legitimize the media, right? I mean, they masters at gaslighting us into thinking, oh, well, no, of course, the election was perfect. Most perfect election on record.
So when does that January 6th commission start? The one that Trump apparently is going to release all this information and these bombshells and that he's been holding back apparently.
I posted about it a little bit ago, and he is supposed to release it all when he goes to court in Georgia. At least that's what Twitter is saying. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that there is a ton of revelations in that, because we all know that there's voter fraud. Like we know it, but we have to have proof to prove in court beyond a shadow of a doubt. So we actually have to have data points, right? Because there's the opposite side is saying, well, prove it. And so we absolutely have to have that proof. Apparently in Georgia also, they're trying to cover up a lot of the fraud too. I saw a post a little bit ago that was saying that they are trying to not release voter records and voter data because of this. So,
one of the good and bad things about our justice system is that it does get to the truth. But when you have someone who is doing something specifically for this manner, or rather for this outcome, which is illegally ballot harvesting and doing all these illegal things, we see them on camera. A normal person knows what's happening. But to prove that in court, as you said, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is a very hard thing to do when they have so many tools at their disposal to say, no, that's actually not what you're seeing. You're seeing them shove. Yes, they are shoving the ballots inside of this box, but it's not done illegally. It's done legally. So how do you prove? It's almost like Elon Musk says, look, to get to 99% safety on a Tesla is very hard. It's very easy, or not easy, but it's been done. To get from 99% to 99.99%, that is exponentially harder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so you're right. So I don't know. You said that our justice system gets to the truth. I think that it exposes the truth for people to see, but we have a lot of activist judges in the country, and they don't even want to hear these cases. So one of the talking points for the left of the 2020 election is that they brought 73 cases to the court and they all got shot down. It's like, yeah, none of them were heard in court. That's ridiculous. Even the one that went to the Supreme Court, where Texas, signed on with 15 other states and was suing Pennsylvania, Michigan, that wasn't even heard by the Supreme Court, when basically it was 50-50. We've said it before as well, I've said it before, that the fact that case wasn't heard tells you that our justice system is completely broken. But so the truth gets exposed, but like you said, it can be there on camera. The State Farm Arena footage of them kicking everybody out, saying that there was a water main break, pulling out suitcases of ballots after hours when there's no poll watchers, which is illegal, putting the ballots into the machine over and over again, which is insane. We have this on camera,
and that's
having
one instance, though. That's just one instance,
and it matches up with an increase, a huge spike of Joe Biden votes in the middle of the night. That whole thing is in a court of law. If you have a jury, if you have a judge who is not an activist leftist judge, it's very easy to prove that what's going on there. But meanwhile, you have Brad Raffensperger's assistant, I guess it was, Gabriel Sterling. Oh, Gabriel Sterling, that's it. He's like on CNN and he's looking at the footage. He's like, oh yeah, this is completely normal. Yeah, this is normal procedure. And it's like, that's all it takes. Of course. No, but he was also in charge of it. And isn't Brad Raffensperger a Republican? So in Georgia?
Sorry. This reminds me of another story, because it seems normal that we invite Xi Jinping to San Francisco. I don't know if you guys saw the video, Fabian, if you can pull it up.
Absolutely.
But there is a amazing parade for Xi Jinping in San Francisco, and not one American flag can be seen. This isn't the right video, but yeah, I mean, this is
at the White House. This is at the White House, I believe.
Well, yeah, this is Biden.
The big man meeting with the bigger man.
Yeah, who owns who? No, but Fabian, if you could
show the other one
of the parade.
This
right here.
So this feels like I'm watching Mao's China all over again.
It feels like a movie. First of all, they clean up San Francisco, right? So
for the first time ever.
For the first time ever, for like a foreign dictator. And then I don't know if you noticed, there's no American flags.
No,
I was shocked by this. All Chinese. Like
think about China. What this would look like in China.
One more point. There's a video of Biden going to China, and there's a similar parade, but there's no flags.
Yeah.
There's no flags.
Also, here's the other thing: is I was looking at these pictures. All of the flags are the exact same size, and they have the exact same pole, the exact same handle. So these people are not individuals that all just happen to get the same exact flag at the same exact place with the same exact color handle. This was all prepared. So who paid for all these flags? Is it the American taxpayer? Because if it is, then we should definitely find out and get answers. What it's probably the Californian taxpayers like me, unfortunately.
Well, so I saw somebody else post this video too on Twitter, and he was a Chinese immigrant, and he said, I fled communist China to come to the States, and this is very scary to see, or very unnerving to see. It's very, something weird is going on with Gavin Newsom and California. And I mean, California is a little country, right? It has the same population as the whole country of Canada. It's what is it, third largest economy in the world, Fabian, you've said?
California's fifth largest economy in the world. Yeah. So
I mean, something weird is going on here. And
well, if you ever see a handoff, right? If you're watching a relay race, or if you're watching,
okay, you're talking
LeBron
about
giving it to someone, you got Joe Biden. Actually, first of all, you don't have Joe Biden saying hi to Z as soon as he lands. Who do you have? The next guy in line. You have Newsom, who's meeting him. Takes them to Joe Biden. Then Joe Biden meets him. If you're looking at purely optics from a marketing standpoint, you have the next guy in line, who Joe Biden is passing a torch to, meeting with the person who he wants to get really cozy with as his first international visit, not even being a president yet. that sends a really, really strong signal in a bad way to all Americans. And the fact that he cleaned up a city that everyone's been telling him and pressuring him to do for over 10 years now, he does it in a matter of what, like a month, with our taxpayer money
Oh, I
for
think it was
one
days.
guy. What was that?
I think it was days. I think like over the weekend it was cleaned up, and it was just like I don't know.
So
where
so
you
what
put
did
all
they
the
do?
homeless
They just displaced all. Yeah. What did they do?
They're
Well,
in
here's the
Oakland
thing.
now. They're in
After he's
Pleasant Hill.
gone,
Like, where are these
They're
guys
all
going?
going to come back. They're all going to come back.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
they are.
they probably paid them to go for a little vacation and put them up in a hotel somewhere like New York.
Well, that's what they do here in here in Los Angeles. You even have some luxury hotels that the mayor Karen Bass has found this obscure law that she's used to her advantage to essentially just take over all these hotels and fill them with homeless people. But
Same thing in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, so the pictures are going to be interesting when he lets everything go back to being the way they were, poop-filled streets.
Yeah.
Then what's his excuse going to be at that point?
They don't. These people don't care, man. They live in their little bubbles. They don't even hear this stuff. They just get told that they're the best and they're
Well,
God
they don't,
sends.
but the media, rather, the people do.
Well, I'm saying like Gavin Newsom just gets his his boots licked every day. Like he there's no way this guy hears any kind of criticism from anybody.
Yeah.
But so New York, there was what's his name, Coleman. So he had an interview. Well, he was on the Rogan podcast and he was explaining New York. He lives in New York, so you have this migrant thing happening in New York, right? It started off as a ploy from Governor Abbott and DeSantis sending migrants there, but then there's a law on the books that essentially doesn't let them deport any migrants or homeless people, not homeless people, migrants. That goes back a long time from when immigration, was the norm. But so now they have to. So even Eric Adams, who wants to get them out because he's seeing that this is going to bankrupt New York City in no time, he can't get them out legally.
And that's the beauty of these old laws that just hidden that you can take. And I mean, this happens all the time. They find some obscure law that no one's ever enacted for 100 years or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, look at this law from 1879."
Yeah.
It's.
Do you want to talk about the next
next topic? Yeah.
Yeah. What was the money to Iran?
The next topic is that the U.S. has released another $10 billion to Iran, with it dog tagged to say it can only be used for humanitarian purposes. But we all know that humanitarian purposes for Iran is the destruction of Israel, right? I mean, come on.
It's definitely subjective.
I'm being very biased here, okay? But I mean, I think we're all thinking it, right?
Well, no, it's absurd that it's happening now, right? We know that Iran clearly funds Hamas, funds Hezbollah. This whole thing is happening. Very weird. But so to clarify, right?
Hezbollah? Is that where he's getting all his money?
Hezbollah? I mean, the guy does have nice cars.
Hezbollah, oh my boy.
Where those things came from.
No,
Yeah,
but let's read this. So, here we go. We must deny these terror groups in Iran's resources by permanently freezing $6 billion in Qatar, $10 billion in Iraq, and enforcing sanctions, China sanctions, and purchasing of Iranian oil. I don't even know if I read that right, but yeah, I mean, they're essentially funding terrorism. Like,
but so they didn't give them $10 billion,
Obama
right?
did the Fast and Furious thing, because I was like, no one was talking about it. Right. This is like right in our faces.
Yeah, it's blatant. But so what they did, to be clear, they removed sanctions that were limiting these funds that were due to Iran from Iraq, something like that. So it's not directly us paying them $10 billion like we're doing in Ukraine, but it's still, either way, it's like, this is what if anything, you need to be increasing sanctions on Iran, not loosening them.
Look, this is like if you're getting robbed and the guy has a knife. No, the guy doesn't have a knife, and you hand him a knife when he's robbing you because you remember that you owed him a knife from a year ago. This is the exact same. Like
Yeah.
you're giving someone who's actively funding people to, to do really, really, really bad things. You're just giving them money. Obama did it. What did he give him, like a billions of dollars in cash on the plane?
Something like that. Like my thought process is the U.S. is losing leverage all across the world, and this is just another example, right? They could have just like said, "Hey, we're going to keep your money, fall in line," right? I think that's what Trump would have done. Is no, we're not going to release this money. Just do what we say, and then maybe we'll give you a part of it or some of it. But we're losing our leverage.
Well, the whole point of freezing money is to unfreeze it when the country starts kind of falling in line. You don't give them the money when they're doing even worse things. I mean, think about it. So Russia has, I don't know how many, let's say $400 billion of frozen assets abroad. I don't know how much money, but it's in the hundreds of billions. Why are you holding it? That's a double standard. If you're giving Iran back the money for doing even worse things, Russia's like, hey, you guys, maybe we should do even worse things to get the money back. Like,
Right.
what kind of message are you sending from a geopolitical strategy point of view?
It's kind of like spoiling your kids, right?
For getting bad grades.
Yeah, it's like spoiling your kids for being screw ups.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many analogies that we can put together, but it's just absurd. The U.S. Okay, well, first of all, we have a dementia-ridden geriatric patient in the office, so we lost leverage a long time ago. The world knows, even though in the U.S. we have the mainstream media that keeps pushing the idea that the 2020 election was perfect, the world knows that 2020 election was a joke. Putin knows, Xi Jinping knows, these guys know that we have a banana republic right now. So we lost leverage a long time ago. Right now, it's hard to know whose interests are being served here with Xi Jinping coming to China and coming to California. I mean, it's hard to know who's in charge right now.
So here's a crazy poll. This came out a few months ago, but 7 in 10 independents are concerned about Biden's mental fitness. This came out in May 24th of this year.
Concerned.
So,
you have to have a problem with your mental fitness if you're not more than concerned. The guy's out to lunch.
Well, and that's before things got really bad. Like he's gotten worse really quickly in the last 6 months. So if it's 70%, and these are independent voters, these aren't left or right. These are the people who decide the election. If they're concerned, imagine what the people in the administration are thinking. Actually, I don't think they care, to be honest.
Oh, they love it. They love it
because they get rid of Biden.
Heard a field day.
They're like, thanks for winning us this. We've got all this stuff done. We don't need you anymore. Have fun in your retirement. All right, let's get Newsom in, or let's get the next guy in with the same policies. It's a
my mom is a straight Democrat, and she's very, she's not beating around the bush. She knows that something's wrong with Biden. But you still have Bill Maher. There's a clip I saw of Bill Maher and Rogan, and they're talking about Biden versus Trump, and Bill Maher is saying Trump's way worse than Biden, right? Like Trump has the same problems as Biden. Like Biden's just like an old guy, he's a little slow, but do you want Trump? He's stupid, and he's
is this
brain
older
dead or whatever.
though?
Like,
because I mean, the world has changed in the last few years. So
no, Bill Maher is so Trump deranged. This is probably it's probably a year ago, maybe six months to a year. But I can find the clip. But
I bet you his tune has changed now. To be honest,
I don't know. Bill Maher, man, he is so deeply Trump deranged that
he's starting to change.
I don't think he's ever coming back.
Here's what I like about Bill Maher, though, is that he is a classical Democrat. He is common sense, right? There's been a lot of monologues that he's done that I have really enjoyed listening to because, number one, like I knew this 3, 4, 5 years ago, but then number two, he is a Democrat, and so if he's spouting common sense, I love it.
I agree, but he also thinks that all Republicans are stupid. He thinks that 90% of Republicans are,
yeah, but that's every Democrat,
backwards.
And then Republicans think Democrats, and it's so
I'm going to challenge you on this, Michael, because I think Bill Maher is actually good for America.
I think he's good, yes, but I think that I think that he's doing and he's moved in the right direction. And with COVID, for one, COVID really made him go more centrist, I believe. And obviously this transgender stuff, and he sees all that stuff. But when it comes to 2020 election, Republicans, Trump, stuff like that, even Ukraine. He thinks that we should be funding Ukraine. There's a lot of stuff that he's just in a bubble with, and I feel like he's a classic narcissist. And if it doesn't affect him, then anybody in that business is.
What I like about him is he's an advocate for free speech. He's debunking a lot of this COVID nonsense, and he's talking about the trans. But a mass majority of his audience is on the left. So he's in a weird way, he's pseudo red pilling a lot of Democrats. And he's
doing it the right way, because he's not alienating his audience all of a sudden who have loved him over the years. But I think what's happening to him is the exact same thing that happened to Joe Rogan, where he's still the same. Look, I find myself, I'm a registered independent, right? And I don't know, maybe everyone knows, maybe nobody knows, and I'm just common sense. And I feel like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan have common sense. Now, obviously, Bill Maher may be a little different, the way he thinks, but they haven't changed. But the left has changed. The left has pulled everyone to the left so far. But the other guys who have life experience are like, no. What the hell is this? You can't tell me red is blue and blue is red. No. That's not how the world works. Younger people are more malleable, and that's why they're going after them. So I really hope there are younger people who are like leftists that are listening to Bill Maher, because they're slowly, like you said, he's red pilling them, but in a sort of way without alienating them.
So the way that I think about it is Bill Maher is top of funnel, right? So first you start listening to Trevor Noah. I even liked what Trevor Noah says. Then you go to Bill Maher, and then you go to Joe Rogan, and then you go to Russell Brand, and then you go to Tucker Carlson. Like that's
interesting.
That is a progression. And so I really, really like Bill Maher in the spot that he's in right now.
Yes. Yeah. So in that sense, yes, I agree. And I think that he is moving more and more towards, the brainwashing that he's experienced when it comes to the right is it's very disturbing for me. I can't deal. So,
well, I'll bet you in the next couple of years, he's going to be
maybe
full MAGA. I bet you.
And
I doubt it.
And you mean MAGA, not in
Clip this.
Clip it. All right.
Bill Maher will be full
time.
MAGA in the next couple of years. Clip it.
But I think you mean that not in a sense where like he's a Trump supporter, but he actually wants America to do well. That's what I think a lot of people say, oh, MAGA. So my question to people in the comments where they say, oh, you're MAGA or something like that. I'm like, so it's bad to want America to be great? And how exactly is that bad?
MAGA
so it has nothing to do with Trump. I know he started, the term or whatever, but a lot of people just want things.
But they have that connotation.
Well, that's actually not true. Bill Clinton used "Make America Great Again."
Oh yeah, it's been like yeah.
So
I didn't know that.
The MAGA movement, the America First movement, is bigger than Trump, because
Absolutely.
Trump is going to have another 4 years, God willing, but then it's not going to go away after he's done. Right? It's going to
spend those 4 years trying to
going. Yeah. I posted a clip of Steve Bannon talking to a reporter, and he said he said exactly what I said, but then he also said, you're going to wish that we had a Trump figure in 10 years, because Trump is a moderate in our movement.
Yeah, he doesn't want war. He wants just the market to be good, the economy to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, people know, and they're starting to realize now, because when Trump was president, yeah, you would get mad at his tweets, but you really weren't getting mad at what he was doing to the country. Everything was going really, really well. Interest rates were low. We all know how life was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Now you see things and you're like, hold on a second. If Trump was supposed to be extreme, then what Biden's doing right now? So he absolutely is a moderate.
I think one of the big things with the hate for Trump on the left is that, you have all these actors and people in the media, and you have for the longest time, well, Reagan was kind of the first person to do it, who was an actor who then became president. Then you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he became governor of California. And they saw Trump doing this, and they just always saw Trump as like a ditz or whatever, and not the most, and they see Trump doing this and they're like, I think it's an envy, jealousy, resentment thing that really got under their skin. And that's one of the reasons why I think Bill Maher, for example, and all these people, I think they're like, I should be able to do that. Why did this guy get, I think something along those lines is at the root of it, because it's so dark. The hatred for Trump. Remember the picture of that girl. Remember her name, redhead, the comedian. She has Trump's head severed and is holding it, and somehow they accuse the right of being extremist towards, and
Mm-hmm.
giving death threats or whatnot. They're standing outside of Supreme Court justices' houses, protesting and chanting when there's a case going on that they want to go a certain way.
Well, and
Mm-hmm.
we know
The
what the
left
left
is-
does. You accuse your opponent of doing what you're doing, so they're defending
Yeah.
against it. Meanwhile, you get to do that exact thing because they're the ones busy. They can't say, "Oh, well, you're doing it too," because that doesn't work. That makes you look bad.
Mhm. I want to go back actually quickly to the money with Iran, just related to the money with Ukraine. I think it was Rogan say it, but they sent accidentally an extra $6 billion to Ukraine on top of what was actually allocated in the Senate.
Well, it was an error, an accounting error.
Yeah, right. Yeah, accounting error.
That's what it
There's a lot of that going on in Ukraine, I'm sure. But so they did a study on what it would take to rebuild every house in Lahaina on Maui, and that cost would be $5 billion.
Oh,
That to put that into context, it's really absurd. I mean, then think about what it would cost to build the wall, which they're now doing, right? They're now continuing to
Texas
build
is
the
doing
wall.
Texas is doing
But no,
it,
but
and now
apparently Biden
Congress-
is talking about doing it too, right?
Yeah, well, the election's coming up, and he knows it's a sore issue. So, look, gas prices are going down. I wonder how that's happening. Is it organic? Interest rates got frozen. The Fed decided to not hike things. Apparently, now the stocks are doing well because inflation is cooling. Yeah, right. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's a typical things that we see before every single election, where things magically get a little bit better. So that voters, when they go, they're like, well, yeah, it was bad for a while, but I think things are getting a little better. So let me.
It's on the up and up. It's on the up and up.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
so my whole family is in finance, right? And I kept telling people, I kept telling my family, I was like, I bet you in 24 the economy is going to be amazing. I bet you. And they're like, oh, like we'll just see what happens. And it's starting to trend in that direction. I mean, stock market's up a little bit, Bitcoin's up a lot. I mean, if I turn out to be right, I'm a better financial predictor than
Right.
Well, the thing is, they're going to keep borrowing to funding to basically doing QA,
Yeah.
which
Uh-huh.
we all know what's going to happen. Our interest payments are going to go up and up and up. I mean, they're essentially it's ridiculous how the government operates, and it's so simple. They print a bunch of money, give it to all these banks, and eventually gets in the hands of the elites that have tons of money. The government runs out of money and says, hey, that money that we gave you, can we have some of it back? We'll give you some interest on it. They say, sure, 4%. Okay, sure. Now it's compounding interest, so they're never going to pay it off. They just keep borrowing more and more money, printing more, giving out, and then borrowing it back from the rich people. So
and then they sell the debt to China. So China owns most of our debt.
Mhm.
Which countries aren't buying up anymore, actually, I've heard.
Yeah, the
whole banking system is ridiculous.
Yeah, they had a massive bond sale, and they had a really hard time. They had to up the interest rate, so they had to add on a bunch of bips to the bond for people to actually buy them. And you can see the price of the bond, and it had to go straight up for buyers to take on. And apparently, Saudi Arabia and the normal buyers in Russia and China were not buying it. So who's buying these bonds at these exorbitant rates?
Well, ultimately, when you're buying U.S. debt, you're basically betting on the future of the U.S. being strong. Because otherwise, why would you buy essentially futures in the American economy, right? And it's very hard to know what is what. Like for the last 100 years, it was inevitable, that as the U.S. has become the main superpower, it was just seemed inevitable that if you put your money in an ETF or in the stock market anywhere, it would, have these insane returns. Getting to a point now where inflation is at a point where we're on the brink of hyperinflation. I don't see that as an impossibility because they printed so much. They printed like 60% of the money supply during this COVID period, or maybe it was 40% in Canada. That's not sustainable in any way. I'm reading right now Princes of the Yen, and it talks about the Japanese banking system that happened post World War II and how they essentially took control of the market and centralized it, but they did not actually borrow out money. The central bank just printed money, and it wasn't like actually debt.
Yeah, they've
Which
had one of the historically lowest interest rates in the entire world for a long time.
right.
That's why they're not
Yeah.
experiencing the kind of growth in the economy that we are, but they're a lot more stable. And unfortunately, they have a demographic that's becoming very geriatric, and they have all that. So
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a complicated one, and I don't have time to get into that now, and I'm still
Yeah.
figuring it out. But
yeah,
they had a whole different system, and our banking system is clearly a mess. Quick point, actually, with the immigration into, or the illegal immigration
and after
into
that, we got to
New
get going.
York
'Cause I know
City.
Gentry has
Yeah. So quickly, apparently they are looking at deporting Venezuelans, particularly Venezuelans, out of the illegal immigrant population. And the commentary that I heard was that essentially, and they're they're also talking about allowing illegal immigrants to vote, right? So apparently the idea is that Venezuelans would not vote for Democrats because they just fled socialism. And apparently this is actually something that's in discussion, to send Venezuelans particularly back to Venezuela.
Yeah,
No
because they know
way.
what living on that. I mean, you got to send the Cubans back, the Venezuelans back, the Chinese back.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you really got to have
No
people who
way.
don't vote, or who, I don't know.
But
That's
this yeah, very right. This thing about voting without, well, first of all, voting without an ID. The funny thing is that they said that was racist for the longest time, but then during COVID, you had to have a COVID passport, and somehow that's not racist, right? So it's easier for them to go and get a COVID passport than it is to get an ID that you need to buy, cigarettes and beer at the corner store. But so one of them's racist, one of them's not. And the people that were not taking these, ouchie Fauci's early on were the minorities.
Yeah. And on that note, guys, we'll go.
Yeah,
ahead and
let's
wrap up
call it quits.
This
You notice
live
me
of
starting to
Global
rant.
Mixtape.
We got to cut it, boys.
Well, Gentry has to go. That's the main
No, I know. I'm kidding. No, it's good.
So thank you guys
All
for
right.
sticking around. As always, make sure that you add us on our socials. It's right there on the screen, breakaway_USA, and we'll see you tomorrow
On the next one.